Start with a story. This might be the number one most often told story by me. Yeah, go grab another one. Which is called A Cup of Tea. This is, I think, the first story in Zen Flesh, Zen Bones. This is a wonderful story, and it is about Nan-in, a Japanese master of Zen. And he received a university professor. Hello, ma'am. Come on in. And the university professor, you can take that one, came to ask him about Zen. And if you know university professors, or people who are like university professors, I'm sounding like I'm about to talk smack about university professors, and I am, but that's not what I mean. There are lots of people like this. University professor is just one of many types of people who do this. Your job is to know a lot of stuff, right? And some of you, your job is not to know a lot of stuff, but you still think you know a lot of stuff. So this is the kind of person who walked in and asked to be taught about Zen from this Zen master. Now, a Zen master knows a lot of stuff, but also knows that they don't know anything. And that is one of the things that we're trying to get at with our meditation. So the Zen master accepted this professor and started pouring tea. And he poured his visitor's cup full and then kept pouring. The professor watched the overflow until he no longer could restrain himself. It is overfull, no more will go in. Like this cup, Nan-in said, you are full of your own opinions and speculations. How can I show you Zen unless you first empty your cup? So I don't know if Nan-in is the first person to do this. Seems like he's at least done it before with people. But I love the visual of, this is like a very formal meeting. This professor came in and he's like, please teach me about Zen. And he pulls out the tea set and he's pouring the tea and he just keeps filling it and it's just tea pouring all over the place. And the professor's like, this can't stand. And so this is meant to be like most of the stories in Zen Flesh, Zen Bones, is like an awakening moment for somebody. And we hope that the professor realized, like, oh, I need to let go of my preconceived notions. And this is at least like a tiny bit of an enlightenment. And this is the whole idea. I mean, this talk, kind of like all the talks, are just about meditation. What we're after in meditation is the ability to empty our cup. And on some levels, this is what we're practicing every time we meditate. And in martial arts, we have like a little bit of ceremony around this that really is also meant to help us, support us in emptying our cup, right? We bow onto the mats. We bow in the beginning of class. And the physicality of the bow is humbling yourself. You're lowering yourself. And I like to think it's like you're letting all of your baggage from the day, but also just all of the, I know this stuff already. Let all of that just roll right off of you. And when we're meditating, this is kind of, without the bows that you're doing, still the same idea. You're allowing all of this to just drop away. Kind of like what I talked about in the last talk about the bucket of water where the bottom fell out and the water fell out and the nun was enlightened instantly because it was like all of this just dropped away. So it's a very important idea, practice emptying our cup. And then with an empty cup, you have this vessel that's ready to accept anything that there is to learn today. And if you have a full cup, there's no room at all. Some of us are like, well, I'll empty a little bit. I'll come in with like a half of a cup full. There's enough to learn a little bit, but I'm not trying to get rid of the stuff that I know. You're not going to get rid of the stuff that you know. It's going to be there. So people have this misconception that it's like I'm telling you to forget everything that you know, leave your family and only meditate all day long. Like, it's not that. It is in the moment being able to let go of these concepts, these attachments that we have. Because when we are attached, when we are full, then there's no space for the moment. We get a lot of students in the dojo that have practiced martial arts before, some of them for many years. We have black belts of other styles come in and practice. And usually if they come in here, they're the kind of person who is ready to learn and ready to let go of their attachment to their old style. And I really love having these people in class because there's this fun struggle that I see them going through where they're having to like unlearn some of this stuff. A lot of you guys have practiced with Adam. He's got such a great attitude and for the life of him cannot stop doing this with his hand. He's done this for like 20 years and he has to put his hand here and he keeps going like this and he'll get it someday. But always has a good attitude about it. He's always smiling. He's like, "Did I do it?" I was like, "Yes, you did." He's like, "Oh, yes, sir." And this is the way that we want to be is especially with the things that we're meant to know so well and to be experts in. The only way to remain really expert and totally informed is to consistently let go, especially of this thought that I know it, and just be eager to learn whatever else is there. And it's a really hard thing to do for a lot of people, but the more we practice, the better we get at it. So the question of the week in the dojo is, I'm going to have to paraphrase it because I never remember exactly. It's something like, what can I let go of? What is it? What? Go read it for me. It's something about letting go. I have to let go of thinking that I know the question of the week.
What do I hold on to?
Of course. What do I hold on to that I would be better off letting go of? And you might have, it's like, I've got an old car that doesn't work anymore and it just sits in my garage, or I've got a smelly old blanket that I've had since I was 10. Okay, but that's not really what we're talking about. We're talking about like attachments and concepts and things that feel oftentimes like they are a part of us or part of who we are at our core. And those are some of the most difficult things to let go of and get beyond. And part of the reason is because often they have really served us well and very likely have served us better than other things that we could be attached to. But I am subscribed to this other newsletter that's maybe as good as our newsletter, by James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits. If you haven't read this book, you should read it, and you should subscribe to this newsletter. It's great. So the question that he asked at the end of this week's is very similar to our question. Which belief once protected me now confines me? And I think that's a more pointed, like aggressive way of asking the question, because this really is what we do to ourselves. We have these things that kind of work for us, but they also confine us. We are imprisoned by these attachments and by these things that we hold to be true. They are limiting ideas. They are ways of being or habits that we have done so many times that they really, again, feel like who we are. And while they may have kept us alive or kept us sane, at least in the past, they are for sure confining us or limiting us in some way. So ask yourself those questions. And it can feel, if you take a similar idea to the teacup, but it's a more, I think, visceral way of thinking about it, because we all have baggage. It's like a backpack filled with bricks. And every brick is like a thing that we are sure that we know, especially the things that we are sure that we know about ourselves. And this is a thing that human beings do. We have a tendency to think of ourselves as being fixed, like I am a certain way. This is just who I am. This is the way that I am. And that's like a brick that we toss in the backpack. And every once in a while, we find another brick. We're like, this looks great. Throw it in the backpack, carry it around. We're just like all day long, just walking around like it's weighed down by the things that we think are true about us and about the world. And it's just feels so heavy, and it is not a choice that we made. This is really like part of what it is to be a human being. We were born with this. Well, maybe we were born with it. Maybe we learned it very early on. But you shouldn't blame yourself. Blame the man. Blame society, and blame your genetics. So I see my daughter, who's 14 months now, and she is wonderful and has this idea that I think is partly genetics and partly learned, where when she wants something, she still can't talk. She's getting good at pointing, and she goes like, And the problem is she's not great at pointing, so she's pointing at a thing that's around a lot of other things. I don't know what she's pointing at. So like tonight before dinner, she's like, and I'm like, do you want this? She's pointing at a bowl that's got like 10 things in it, and I'm like, do you want the chicken? She's like, bah. I'm like, do you want the rice? She's like, gah. I'm like, do you want the water that's sitting next to the bowl? She's like, no. And then she just starts crying. And she's crying, and I'm like, what do you want? What is it that I can do for you? And it's just tears, and she's wailing, and this doesn't work for her. It probably worked a couple of times, like maybe accidentally. She cried and then just happened to get the thing that she wanted. I have personally tried to be very good at not giving her what she wants when she's yelling in my ear. But sometimes it happens. But she's got this thing. Now at some point, and I'm pretty sure, I'm confident in saying that we all have this at some point. At some point, to function in society, she's going to have to stop just crying and screaming when she wants something. Her options in life are going to be very limited in that way. So this is something that she will probably not consciously make a choice, like, I should stop crying. She's 2 years old. This isn't working for me. I'm going to try something else. But there are plenty of things that are like that in our lives. And maybe some of us do still need to consciously decide the way that I'm acting out with XYZ person or with everybody in my life isn't really working. So I need to choose a better way of dealing. But whether it's as dramatic as that, or like all of the other much more subtle, insidious things. Insidious is not a word. These little things that are subtle, that we have a harder time noticing. It's like this is kind of what we are just composed of. All of our little things that we're attached to, that we think work, that don't really work. So we're trying to look at these things that we do, and sometimes it's hard to recognize those things as clearly as it might be, where there are just things that we think are fact and are not. There are things, any good scientist will tell you that science doesn't have all the answers, we're just working on it. And part of being a scientist is like constantly taking stock in things that we know and studying and asking questions and doing all that stuff. And this is what we should do with our lives. We should be scientists in our own lives and be asking, is what I think I know to be true actually true? And very often we'll run across a fact that we hear that is in direct opposition to what we think is true, and it could be an old fact that has been disproven by somebody, or it could be something that was never a fact, but we heard it and we're like, this is it, this is true, and so we hold on to it. And it's like, what, Pluto's not a planet anymore? Is that true? Pluto's like an exo something, it's not a planet. And when I was in school, Pluto was a planet. And if you ask me to name the planets, unless I really stop to think about it, I will eventually get to Pluto. It might take me a while, but I'll eventually get there. And then I'll have to remind myself, wait, Pluto's not a planet anymore. So that's an example. Not as an especially important one, but surely you have things like that in your life that are like, this is a fact, but now I realize it's no longer actually true. So try to recognize that the attachments that we have will not usually be as black and white as that, but that does not make it any less true or less false or less useful to let go of, move on to something else. So part of the issue is that as human beings, we love knowing things. It makes us feel good. It makes us feel good to know more than somebody else. But most importantly for us, it is about knowing the way that things are going to go. Because when we think we know what's going to happen in the future, this makes us feel safe. It helps us be calm. Unless we're focusing, as some of us do, on the things that are going to happen in the future, that we're sure are going to happen in the future, that are terrible, that, maybe you have a test coming up. You just can't stop thinking about that. Are you listening to me? Yes. Great. So, we use it for good and for bad. But this is a real problem for us because we get attached to these things and we spend so much time in this space of like, I got to know what's going to happen next and I feel good about this, and we get all of this reinforcement from it. And meditation is kind of like the opposite of that. It's like we're trying to let go of these thoughts, of these opinions that we think are fact, letting go of what we think is going to happen in the future. Right? We have this very linear way of going through life. And first this thing happened, and we tell ourselves stories, and then it's the next thing that happened, and this is where I am now, and then I follow that trajectory, and that's where we're going to be in the future. And meditation is meant to be kind of like a break in that, where we kind of step out of this linear way of thinking, and we are just in a clearing, in a moment where there is no attachment to past or future. There is just this moment and this breath. And so when we do that, this is a very helpful, important way of being able to get out of these attachments to things that we think are true. Because when we're kind of stuck in the story of it, bless you, it's like when we're stuck in the story, it's kind of like there's no way to see beyond it. We kind of get into this tunnel. And when we meditate, it's kind of like we break out of the tunnel. We can look at it and we're like, oh, that tunnel is not going the way that we want it to go. So I said a bunch of stuff that I didn't need to say. Becoming uncomfortable is one of our goals. And in meditation, this is going to happen sometimes. I'm not talking about being physically uncomfortable, but I'm talking about sitting for so long that our mind starts to get a little bit squirrely, and we start to want to get out. We start to feel like we got to jump out of our skin. And this is partly because when we're not in a space mentally where we have this comforting story that we're telling ourselves, or we have this comforting feel of, I know what's happening next. In meditation, I mean, you kind of know what's happening next. You should just be sitting still and breathing. But the next thought that enters your mind, you don't know what this is. And the discomfort that we might experience in meditation is kind of like the kind of discomfort we want to experience in everyday life. The discomfort that is where we sit when we are free of thinking that we know, thinking that we know everything, thinking that we know what's going to happen next. And the discomfort is the thing that makes us hold on to things. The discomfort is what makes us kind of reach back for our attachments. As soon as we start to kind of step away and free ourselves, and then we feel uncomfortable, I don't know what's going to happen next, I don't know what this means, then we kind of hold on tighter. And when we first encounter this in meditation or in anything, it is very difficult to just be with it and be okay with it. But this is really what we want to practice, is seeking discomfort and being comfortable with discomfort, knowing that discomfort is just kind of another way of being that will not really cause us any lasting pain. It's just uncomfortable right now. And what's beyond that is real growth, real learning, the opportunity to discover things about ourselves that we couldn't otherwise see. So when we're in our little tunnel, or we're in our ruts and we're doing the same things over and over again and having the same thoughts over and over again, we're like machines. We just kind of like do what we've been programmed to do. But when we can get out of that, then we're like, anything is possible. So they say that in an expert's mind, now in a beginner's mind there are so many possibilities, but in an expert's mind there are few. We want to be in that space where there are so many possibilities, limitless directions that we can go. And that kind of limitless space, where we're feeling untethered, is also very uncomfortable and can be scary. And so just try to play with that. Play with that in your meditation, play with that in life. And this is what we're going to do tonight. So when you're sitting, this is the only thing that you know is true and solid, is the thing that you're doing physically. You're just sitting and breathing. The breathing is going to go up and down. What your mind is going to do is try to hold on to something. So in meditation, you'll run up against the things that are, so core to you, and you'll also run up against things that are very flighty and not so important, or don't seem like they are such a big attachment. But all of it is stuff that we're recognizing and letting go. So when we meditate, any thought, whether it's a huge thing that's like, I'm thinking about the core of my humanity and my existence, or it's a tiny thing like, what am I going to eat for dinner after I leave? All of this, just practice returning back to the breath. So the breath is the thing that is like one of the ultimate paradoxes that we study, because it is our anchor, it is solid, yet it's constantly in flux. So we don't get attached to this breath. We just recognize the breath that is here now, and then when it goes, we let it go. In the same way, we want to recognize this thought. Instead of treating it like something that we should build our whole life on, we just let it go and move on to the next one. And then when you're done with meditation, you'll go off into your world and you'll find things to get attached to and things to let go of. Maybe you'll decide, like, is this a thing that I really need to be attached to? Is this a thing that I can question and maybe let go of? And maybe you'll take this kind of practice that we have in meditation, this ability to recognize those things right away and let them go immediately. Maybe you can take that into everyday life. But at least now, in this moment for the next 15 minutes, this is what we're practicing. Sit comfortably. Samira, don't you want to go out there? Thank you. Close eyes, spine straight, eyes upturned, relax, watch the breath. Let go of all thoughts, worries, and cares. Be here now.